Stay here.
The startup guide. Okay. We'll call this meeting to order. Wait. Am I good now?
Yep.
Okay, we're calling the meeting to order. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
It stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's take a roll call. We'll start with you, John.
John Barry, present.
Marty Mantonfeld present.
Peggy Hall, present.
Alan Steinbeck here.
Laura Leroy present.
Do we have any public
I have
comments?
one from Mrs. Carol Pancaw regarding items 7D and 8E.
7D.
3 minutes and 8E.
Well, I won't take 3 minutes. After going to the last safety and security subcommittee meeting, and they were talking about the post orders. So that's one of the things that you're going to be reviewing under the safety and security subcommittee update. They had a discussion about the rover, and it came to my attention that we pay in our contract right now, Wiser leases a vehicle, and that's the rover that is used in Pelican Preserve. And it just seems to me that it would be smarter if we, going forward, would buy our own vehicle and have it available. I'm sure we've paid many times over for that vehicle in that lease agreement. And so I'm not saying what kind of vehicle we should have. I understand there's been motor vehicles discussed, there's been golf carts discussed, there's been many different things. But either in the budget or under the contract, I think this board should have a discussion about a vehicle that is owned by Pelican and used for hopefully many years.
That's a very good thing to bring to our attention.
Here,
Wait, thank you.
the new contract proposal that I read today requires the new contractor, whoever wins the bid, to provide that vehicle. So it's in.
Oh, I thought it wasn't in there.
Yeah, it's in there.
Oh, it's in there.
When we
Okay.
get there, will you show us?
Sure.
Well, then.
Yeah.
Oh, safety and security is going to make a recommendation.
Jennifer's here.
Okay,
But under
Okay.
that proposal, you'd still be paying for it.
Yeah, it's
Right.
part of your contract. Right?
so maybe that part could be deleted from
Yeah.
the contract, and,
Or maybe get two prices with and without the vehicle. Then we can make a decision.
but I think it will also affect your budgeting
Right.
coming up this year
Right.
because the contract is up the end of this fiscal year. So anyway, wherever it falls, I think we should consider purchasing our own vehicle, rover vehicle of some sort.
So the rover in the new contract, well, it's only scheduled from 2200 to 0600.
Right.
That's what they are talking about themselves. They haven't brought it forward.
All right.
The community I came from, and I was president of the association at that time, we did have a golf cart. The security went around in the evenings. Didn't do it during the day, just in the evenings. And it worked out great. It worked out fine. And if there was only one person working the center, we made sure that there was a sign that was placed on there to call such and such a number, and they could let them in remotely. So I don't know that you want to do that here. I would assume there's always two people here. I don't really know. So, but anyway, it worked out fine. And to have the price of a vehicle, a car, it does seem a little bit excessive to me personally, but.
We can look at all of that. No minutes to approve,
Correct.
and that's because
There is a backlog at Infomark. I'm addressing it. I did get a response from them this morning. They're overwhelmed. So Georgia did say that some of the stuff from March is finally trickling in. So they're going to try to get stuff within 30 days back to us. So it's not that we didn't send it. is that we didn't get them back. But the good thing is you haven't had to pay for them yet either because they didn't do them. So,
There's the.
because they only, you only pay if they do them.
Okay. All right, let's go into the financial report for March.
Before you get
Oh,
to
yeah.
there,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we have a
can
suggestion.
we change item 9A and move it up?
Under
to
7.
7,
E, it would be E. Or
can we, no, move, there's already ponds up there, so why don't we just do it at the same time? B,
well, it's a separate item, so.
well, separate item, but put it
Well,
with
and-
him so that he's only doing it once and he can
Yeah.
leave.
Nope, I get it. Move it up
Yeah.
to, I would say put it at C then, and then just
Okay.
move C and D down.
And Doug's on the line, is that correct?
He is.
I'm sure he appreciates that.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Alan, I'll give you $10 tomorrow.
It's, and I don't do
It's
for
20.
anything for less than 20.
All right. Do we have to make a formal move for that?
It's probably best to,
Okay,
because you're
anybody
changing
would like
the,
to make a motion?
I make a motion, we move item 9A to 7C
Second.
on the agenda.
Okay, John Barry,
Second.
second. Any discussion? All agreed?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now we're going to the financial report. So I feel like, I'm just gonna start off with saying, I feel like we're not ready to like turn over anything officially at this point, because I don't feel like we've got current information.
what do you mean turnover?
I mean, to be able to say we feel really comfortable with sending this on to,
Well, these are financials. This isn't the
okay,
budget.
sorry,
Not the budget.
not the budget. Okay,
Yes.
sorry. I'm pre-thinking my
Yes.
issues.
This is Ed, am I on here?
Yeah, you are.
Again, I'll bring up that this is a little misleading because it combines operating and capital items in this budget. And here's my view of the world. Sit down.
Thank you.
So if you look, the ponds, if you start up, from the,
No,
there's a few extras if you want. But based on the March financials provided to Gateway Board of Directors, the numbers are pretty accurate, but ponds, I just did a kind of analysis, what the unspent budget, it's still based on, it hasn't been, whatever you call, audited yet. We don't have the audited, but there was about 160,000 left over in the ponds. And then at the last meeting or two, we approved transferring 100,000, from the ponds reserves to their operating budget. So that leaves about give or take 150,000. And then the landscape had about 294,000, again, unaudited, so then the unassigned is 2.7 million. If you look at the unspent operating budgets, and then the unspent operating budget, and then the future transfer reserves, we have about a $450,000 surplus in our operating fund. And then the bottom part is the actual operating budgets, what was approved and what was amended. And in there, I've added the 100,000 that we approved the transfer, to the ponds group. So their budget would go from 804 to 904. But then the safety and security, there's about 100,000. It's arguable whether some of those are operating or could be capitalized, but there's about 100,000 that I think could go from the roads that have been charged to the operating that should be charged against the capital and paid for out of the capital.
you'll see that reflected
budget.
in the April financials.
So,
Is it possible for us to start getting this that's more broken out so that we've got a much clearer picture?
I can actually give you the other sheets like I have the breakouts for each of the committees, which looks similar to this, but it's.
Well,
specific
but
to
I'm
them.
saying in a combined status like this, where we can actually see what we've got allocated. Because to say that we've got unassigned of 27 or 2.7 million is inaccurate. I mean, that is,
That's your real.
Yes,
no, the Oh,
The other reserves are.
unspent, yeah, the 1.9 is already spoken for, so to speak.
Right. Some of it is.
So I guess I struggle between looking at this. I think it gives a vastly optimistic picture when we don't see the transfers. Like the 90,000 that, or the 100,000 that Doug had. We actually had that in, just a second. We actually had, those were in accrued invoices that hadn't come in on time. So, I mean, there are a lot of things in here that,
But what you're
Well, that's
struggling
true.
with, Peggy, is thinking that that money is coming out of the reserves. It's not. It's coming out of the ponds reserves.
Right.
So when the ponds budget was initiated, all these years, every year there's a carryover balance or a negative, happens to be a carryover positive.
well, why would we have a $90,000 ponds reserve and then we had to take $100,000 out of regular?
We didn't.
No.
We did not take a penny out of regular reserves.
Yeah.
The 100,000 was, it's just listed because it was a ponds reserve going back in the pond. It did not come out of our reserves.
It's.
That's the point of what Ed is getting to. And the kind of decision I guess they
when
need
you-
to
when
think
you-
about.
When you look at the balance sheet, they have, it lists out our capital reserves, our emergency reserves,
Mhm.
and a ponds reserves of 90,000, but that was from the unspent from
Prior years.
prior years of 22.
Through 22.
Okay.
So then in 23, ponds had an unspent of about $160,000. So that is still currently in the 2.7 unassigned, because they don't transfer it out until it's audited and transferred over. So at the 2 meetings ago, we said we would transfer 100,000 from the ponds reserves to the ponds operating budget. It's not coming out of our capital reserve.
And therein lies the problem and the confusion. If you think in terms of ponds, we'll just talk about that. The ponds number, the 800 and whatever they pay a year, whatever we get, that is a set number. Okay, that's what they're going to spend every year. They don't spend it, then it goes into their reserves. At one time, we had over $1 million in ponds reserves intentionally, because we knew when we started aeration, it was going to be $600,000 or $700,000. So rather than have a budget that fluctuated year over year by a significant amount of money, we kept the budget the same. We accumulated money, and when we had accumulated enough, then we applied it to those things. So, and I get, it can be very confusing. That's why I'm trying to make sure that we're not. Same thing with landscaping. If this year, 2023, they end up at the end of the year with unspent monies, by definition, that's kind of a reserve.
Yeah.
So that reserve, again, is still within landscaping.
Then I would ask that we think of a different name.
Okay, and that's
You know,
appropriate.
to me, to call everything reserves when some of them aren't even legal.
Wouldn't argue about that at all. Because it does
That's how
stop the
they're
confusion.
lined out on the district financial statement.
But we can change that. I mean, Laura is very
I
good with
just,
that.
I don't understand. I mean, you guys asked to have these things put into reserve
do.
and have them segregated, so that's why they are this way. That's money that's set aside and it's reserved for ponds to use for something, or reserved for landscape to use, or reserved for safety and security.
But they're not technically a reserve. They're not legally a reserve.
I don't know
It's
what-
excess the dollar.
They're assigned,
Right.
they're assigned.
They're
Unspent,
unspent funds.
unspent funds.
Yes.
Yeah. A
Yes.
reserve by the nature of it is solely allocated to whatever it is that you put it in reserve for.
That's right,
Typically
that's,
happen.
and that's what we do. That's why that's reserved for ponds. So the ponds group can use any of those dollars in there for anything that they want. Same with landscaping. Capital reserves are reserved, restricted for capital projects. And then you have your general unassigned, which you can use for whatever you want. So, but you're the only fund that does yours this way. No one else segregates their reserves into like the subs, like ours for the general fund. Whatever you carry over just goes into unassigned. We don't have a Parks and Rec reserve or a Public Works reserve. We just have.
But the reason for that, Laura, is you're 100% correct, is we never had a landscape group.
Right.
And we never had. So if we continue the same methodologies we've employed for 14 years with ponds, then this would be
So you're
appropriate.
just, you're earmarking these for the landscape and safety and security based on funds they're not using. That's why they're called reserves. So that the money is reserved for safety and security or reserved for landscape or reserved for ponds. It's not restricted for a specific project. It doesn't have to be a capital project. You can use it for whatever you want. It's just it's specifically marked for that group for them to be able to use. That's why it's labeled that way.
The other flexibility it gives the chairman of the 3 subcommittees is they don't have to come up, now I'm not gonna say beg for money, but you know what I mean? They don't have to come up and say, I need more money. All they're gonna do is tell you that their committee is recommending that they take these unspent monies and apply them to this, so it doesn't impact the budget. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there.
And the big point here is the unassigned isn't truly unassigned. It's,
And I'm still working with, I'm still working with Infomark for them to call that out as a separate line. So it'll be
Yeah.
like you have yours on here with the unspent
That would help.
operating.
it includes unspent budget year funds and the transfers of unspent money that hasn't been transferred into those reserve accounts.
Correct.
So truly, there's only 450,000 surplus or unassigned,
Right.
truly unassigned.
Wait a minute, are you thinking that there's only $400,000 worth of reserves?
No,
No.
no, this year's this year's
Unassigned,
monies that aren't spent and aren't
unspent.
accounted for,
On,
we have an
It doesn't
excess of
change the money on it.
$450,000.
Okay. Like the emergency reserves for emergency. That was a one-time expense. We put the money in there
Yeah,
for a future.
those are-
So we're not gonna do that every year. It's there. It's for a hurricane or special event. But you wouldn't be contributing to that every year. It's there. Whereas contributions to reserves, the 200,000 does go in every year. We put that in. So when you're thinking in terms of roadways, which again is relatively new, when you're doing the roadway repairs, if the O and M budget of the safety system puts funds in roadway repairs, then by definition, they should come and you guys should buy it or they should buy it. And it says, okay, we're gonna do minor repairs like Diamante and Breno in our O and M budget, because it's not a full roadway repair. However, when it comes time to do Pelican Reserve Boulevard or Cypress Grove, that's going to require capital budgets. That's when we go into our real capital improvement plan. Hope I didn't confuse you.
Mhm.
no more than normal. How's that?
I do have a question. You're saying Breno Drive is not a capital improvement?
Yes.
With the O and M budget. Physically, it is a capital improvement, but it's only repair. It's only a repair.
No,
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 it's
we're-
being totally redone.
It's being taken back to factory spec as what Dan.
No, you're not. Factory specs means you dig up everything. This is just a mill and pave. That's a repair.
Mill and pave.
Don't get hung up on the words. It can be handled in the O and M. That's the important.
it was,
It is a kind of repair that can be handled in O and M, normal.
it was intended that those would be taken out of the capital reserves in the 280,000 or whatever we budgeted for road resurfacing out of the capital. It wasn't budgeted in the operating.
Correct, because we didn't have a safety and security group. This is the first year we've had that.
But it
And we
was-
never repaired a road before Avila. So it is relatively new.
It'll be coming up.
Well, I
more
guess
now
it's
that
kind
community's
of
getting
up to
older.
our committee to decide
Absolutely.
whether or not we want to treat these as operating expenses or capital and take them out of. the
And how does the subcommittee want to do it? They should make a recommendation to you that if it's anything under, I don't know, 300,000, maybe they'll handle it. Otherwise, no.
Well, the recommendations that came out of there was to include those in the capital budget.
I
That
didn't
was
hear that.
in our-
Okay, I might have missed that one.
We had like. Well, we'll look at that in the budget, when we
Yeah,
get to the
we
budget.
get to that. So any other questions on what we've got besides? We'd like to see a little bit of change in the layout,
More clarity.
more clarity in the. In the break. So Laura, you basically know what we're asking for, is that
I think
correct?
so, yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right,
I gotta think that there's a more simpler way to present it.
That's why I tried to make this as, I can't really summarize it much more than it is here.
I know it,
so.
I know it, I don't.
ouch.
There's gonna be a small change to this. I did get some more, I've got so many things going on right now. I think it's the
Yes.
Lazo. That's gonna actually be a little bit more,
Guys,
so, anyway, you guys had approved for us to pay them back for the streetlights, and then I have the aerators that, were billed, that I need to reimburse for as well. I have it 2/3 of the way done laying on my desk, so. Marty?
Okay.
Once I can get the budget stuff done, then I will finalize that and get you guys the final numbers.
but right now we're sitting around 9,000. It'll
Yeah.
probably be more than that.
Yeah, it shouldn't be more than 10. There's a couple years of invoices that I need to go back through. I think actually they sent me 2, but they're only eligible to get reimbursed for 1. So it should be pretty close to right around 10. And I
And
think
then
they fall
we did the
within the,
resolution. Did we have a not to exceed on? that?
yeah, I think it falls below that. So I'll go back and double check, but I know I had that I left my folder laying on my desk again, so I had all that in there. I ran over to meet Bob and got distracted, so it's Bob's fault. It's Bob's fault.
It's Bob's fault.
Usually is.
Blame Bob. Okay,
Laura, what's the password for the Wi-Fi in here?
Gateway, all lowercase, and then an exclamation point.
now anybody who's listening. Yes.
Well, it's public. It's back
Oh,
there on
never
the,
mind.
it's on the wall. It's not like it's a secret. I'm not
Okay.
giving you the one to our Wi-Fi. You can have the public Wi-Fi one.
All right, let's move on to the subcommittee updates. We'll start with safety and security, new members.
Right, so at the safety and security meeting on April 25th, they voted to approve J, and then on May 3rd, they voted and approved CC. So they're just looking for final approval from you to have them added to the committee.
Yeah, really solid candidates, very solid candidates.
I
Do we
guess
have
they-
a recommendation to approve? Oh, would you like to speak? Come on.
I was just gonna say, this is Jennifer Nisanoff. Yeah, I agree with you. We have 2 very solid candidates. And I think not only are their backgrounds really great individually, I think they're going to fit in with the rest of the team very nicely as well. Because you need a lot of different types of people within that kind of organization to make it run really well. And it's almost picture perfect.
Yeah, you've got a lot of breadth to your committee, so you have to have a lot of breadth in your subgroup.
Yes, exactly.
Move approval. Make a recommendation to approve both candidates.
Okay, so we've got, well, let's say Marty's got the recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Who
Aye.
made the second? I had 2 people said at the same time. Who are you gonna give it to?
I'm sorry, say
2
that.
people seconded it at the same time. Who are you gonna give it
And
to?
beat me to it.
All
Okay,
right.
we'll give it to Ed. Jump ball. All right, so all in favor? We say
Aye.
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 And welcome to the group, Cece.
Yes.
I know. I was gonna say, now you just get to talk more. Okay, so 7B, we've got the subcommittee for ponds member appointments. We've got 3, Lou Lemire, Lynn Applegren, and Dr. Pete Audette.
Who are already on the pond.
They are
and
already on,
would like to
contributing
stay.
greatly, so. Doug, do you have anything you want to add on this?
No, we tried to get more members to apply to the for the board, but the 3 members that are currently were expiring all put their application in, and that's all we have. So the recommendation of the subgroup was to accept the 3 because that's the number of open seats.
And get a motion to approve?
I'll
or
make
do
a
you-
motion to approve all 3 candidates as specified.
Second.
Okay, John Barry, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
I
on
made
you.
them down to 9.
Ponds update.
So then now Doug, we're gonna move to let you talk to us about the ponds update.
Okay, the biggest thing in the ponds update, because I also have the fountains as something that we'll talk about, the entrance fountains as the next item on the agenda. The update is the ponds erosion project will begin the second week in June. It anticipated is 90 to 120 days for completion. It'll all depend on the weather. I have already spoken to both the presidents of Margarita 1 and Solera 1 to go through the plan. You can see there we have Gateway use this restoration information to put on the door of the affected homes. It was been slightly modified for us, which will be put on the doors of each of the home. The president of each of the board it plans to send out that same information in an email, because some residents won't be in the home, so they won't see the thing we put on the door. And the only other thing we plan to do is that we plan to have a Zoom session or a teaming session for any resident with the contractor in case someone has some additional questions. That will be done 2 weeks from now is the current schedule. And the only other thing is Daniel will be the lead from project management from a Gateway standpoint. They had said, both of us, myself and Daniel and I said, two-headed person isn't the right thing. So Daniel will communicate with me and keep me in the loop on everything. But as far as the contractor is concerned, it's one person, and that's Daniel. And by the way, Daniel didn't ask for that. I brought it up because I think it's not good to have two people responsible for something like that.
And he accepted.
And yeah, well, I don't know if he had a choice at that point. The other thing, we don't have to go through the to-dos, but we did complete Weir 3, planted the cannas. Actually, I planted the cannas and my wife watched for alligators. And yeah, you can see some, by the way, that saved about $600 by doing it that way.
Looks nice.
Thank you.
Looks nice.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank
did a
you.
Good job.
I don't know if I did a good job, but they're there. There's some other things on there we don't need to look at. I know if Carol, the power washing of that flowway structure, it's on the to-do list, but just to follow up, that's not got done. Carol, you remember you brought those two ladies, I don't have their names in front of me right now, to the ponds group, and this is on the flowway. But I told them I'd help coordinate that, and to right now, I've done a poor job of that because it's still not been done. Daniel knows about it, but it's not been done.
Well, we know you have a
Okay.
lot going on, like planting cannabis in the flow.
Can we move on to the next one?
Yes.
What's that? The next one is the entrance fountain. If you were at the president's meeting today,
Yep, I'll get it. Thank you.
I can start talking. Our plan is the Ponds Group recommended that we go with Pool Trooper, and I'll go through a little bit of that to do the entrance fountain coming in the Pelican Preserve. The plan right now, or the current situation, is those fountains maybe spurred up less than 6 inches high. You can't even see them from the street, and there's no lights at night. We have a proposal from Pool Trooper to put in new motors, 3 horse motors for both fountains, and that will allow us to go 4 to 5 feet high, along with color lights. At nighttime, we will have color lights on them, so that we can have a entry to our Pelican Preserve that matches the quality of our group, of our community. Compared, if you go down the tree line, I mean, we look, with a stepchild or something like that. So that's the plan. The Pool Troopers will also change maintenance. And part of the problem is Ocean Blue had been doing our maintenance, and we've had a lot of problems with them. And actually Laura can attest to the problems just to get invoices and get things through them. They're just a small shop with the guy's wife being the financial person, and it's hard for the group to coordinate with her. But so we don't have the proposal for the maintenance. This is a proposal 21,751.28. That's a proposal to put 3 horsepower motors in each side. to bring that up to 4 to 5 foot tall and to add color lights. And also those two fountains at the back of them will be fixed in this contract also, so that it will spurt out the water out of those side medallions that are at each side.
Oh, nice.
So that's what this is to do. I apologize, it's taken a while to get to this point because we've wanted to do this for quite a while. And it's something we need to do as a community, I believe.
Hey Doug,
Yes,
the colored lights, are those alternating or does somebody have to change those?
they're alternating.
Okay,
They're alternating. They shift
Can we
through a
make them
cycle.
seasonal? Can we make them seasonal, like red and green? at
Yeah,
times?
and my wife already came to me and said, can we put dye in there for green for St. Patrick's Day like they do in Chicago and things like that. I don't know the environmental impact of doing something like that. But once we get this done, there's a lot of, I think we could make, that they will cycle through, but they're electronic that could be put to one color.
Okay. All right. Just a question.
So I just want to make clear that the reason we're not, the reason we're switching away from the other company is not solely administrative. We're also having performance issues with the current company who's maintaining the fountains. The admin part of it is just another, it's
No,
like the cake,
but I
so.
just used you as a different, I mean,
Yeah.
when I went with pool troopers behind the thing, behind the monument there, to look at the pumps and stuff like that, there was probably 3 4-foot high filters, used filters that just threw on the ground. There was a leaking overflow valve for not overflow, fill valve. They're doing a bad job.
Yeah, quality wasn't there. Understood.
Okay, now I don't know if, I mean, I'm okay with, I know this doesn't have to go to CDD. I'm fine with you guys approving if you want to. It's not required, but you can just be in the boat with me and take some of the credit for the beautiful fountains we're going to have.
He has a budget line that you've already approved as P-PAC. So this would fall under that already approved budget line and it's under my spending threshold, so we can just put it through. So he was just more of a, hey, this is how I'm planning to spend this money. This is what's going on kind of thing.
Do we need a formal recommendation?
You don't,
We
no.
don't.
Okay.
And I mean, it would just be if you have any kind of
No.
opposition to it, now it'd be like speaker forever hold your peace kind of thing.
No, I
So-
like the idea. I think
Yeah, I'm
that's a
looking
great move.
forward to it.
Yeah. Good job, Doug.
Okay, that's all we have. And
have a good time in Orlando.
Thanks, Doug.
and I'm glad Mark is painting the monuments and not me.
He's thrilled too.
Yeah, you can tell. All right, so let's move on then. Safety and security, I think, is our next, we kind of commingled a couple of them in there with Doug.
Whoops, I gotta do no pool. Next is access control.
Yep.
This is Jennifer Nisanoff again. Let me just give you a little bit of background about what we're doing. Our contract with Wiser is about to expire. So what we're doing is we're putting out an RFP to anybody who'd like to bid to do access control and security. And what we've tried to do in this RFP is a couple of things. First of all, most of the substance in terms of the scope is toward the back. The beginning is a lot of stuff that you would see in a boilerplate type of RFP. We wanted to be really, let me see what section scope is. Section 9, how about if we start there? And what we wanted to do is to be really, really clear, not only in this contract, but then in subsequent post orders, and I'll get to that in a moment, about what we expect out of our vendor. Not only what we expect, but what would happen if they're not coming up to performance standards, because we are having some issues right now with our current vendor. And so I don't know if you've had a chance to look through this, but we've really talked about not only what we're going to do, but how we're going to really monitor them and what we expect from them in terms of providing us status and data. If you look through this, it's a little different than what they're doing today. because we're also going to include not only CDD assets, but some of the assets from the Pelican Preserve Community Association. The team, and most notably one member of our team, Danny Clemens, has worked with Faye Formoso, with Adam Radler, Yannabelle, to make sure that they were buying into the scope that we have. We're also going to make it very clear that this is observe and report. So the security portion of it, the access control, I think everybody's kind of aware of, but it's the security that seems to be getting people kind of confused. These folks are not law enforcement. So they're going to know what they're expected to look for, what parameters they can use, and if certain things happen, who do they report it to? Is it law enforcement? If there's a problem, for instance, you'll see in here that the Casella pools and the Palazzo pool are both in there because there have been incidents recently where people are in there out of hours, and that's illegal. So we've worked with their HOA presidents to make sure they know that this is within scope. They are agreeing with the scope as well. So if they see something wrong, let's say they see something illegal going on in the Costello pool outside of normal hours, who do they report the incident to? And then who do they actually alert in the HOA? So all of that is going to be really clearly outlined. And we're hoping that that's going to do much better things with the vendor in the future and also with residents who get kind of confused about really what is the role of our access control and security team all about. So that's the background.
So the contract itself is only between GSCDD and
Yes,
the vendor, correct?
yes, that is correct.
Okay, but
That's
our
why we.
scope is enlarged.
Yes, and that's why we needed to make sure we had buy-in from all the organizations. And we had the CDD involved with that as well. There was actually a sub-team that was put together to go through the scope and make sure everybody was agreeing to it.
So are they allowed to do any other duties other than what you just listed here? For instance, after a concert with all the lights stay on all night long, are they allowed to turn those off or alert somebody or something like that?
They could alert somebody. I don't know that that actually was something that we had in our scope per se. But that's something that we'd have to list out in the post orders because this is by very nature a little bit higher level than that. So I can put that in there for consideration within the post orders, but I don't think we talked about the
cost
lights.
savings of sorts
Mhm.
for different jobs like that. So if you could somehow or other ask somebody that if they want to consider that.
But it's basically observe and report. So
Exactly.
they would report, if they're on, they would report to somebody.
Whoever's
Well, that's exactly right. They're not going to do the actual work. It's observe and report.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm. And in addition to the reports, one of the problems we're having right now, to be honest, is we're not getting incident reports from Wiser. So it's going to be really emphasized in this contract that when they have incidents, what are those incidents? What defines an incident? What kind of report are they supposed to be filling out? And to whom do they actually send the reports? Because we're not getting them. So things are happening and we're not really aware of what's going on sometimes.
The in my former work life, I had over $13 million US contract with a company. And what you're really doing, you're hiring a management service. You're not hiring security guards because you're going to get the same pool of people for whatever service goes out there. And you could have 10 different contract services, but you're hiring a management service because the same people are going to be vying for those jobs at $9 or $10 an hour. So that's really important when you're taking a look at these things. You know, what's their experience been and what's their performance been as far as management is concerned. At least that's what we found.
Yes, and that's where we're finding some issues currently.
Yeah.
I think too, the Rover, they're looking at reducing the hours to 10 PM.
It's
to
on
6 a.m.
10B. If Laura will scroll down, you go to 10B.
Yeah.
It shows the hours there.
Right.
Yes, so it's basically when it's after the services are closed up at the town center until when they more or less open up in the morning.
And I think some of that was also due to the fact that there are people out and about during the day. where
Yes.
there's less people out and about at night. So to pay for them to have a rover while there's other people out, that we're just trying to be more cost conscious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think
Yeah.
And that would actually include not just driving around, but potentially walking around the town center.
Exactly.
Certain locations to verify certain things. So that's a change as well.
And
Mhm.
were you guys gonna be looking more at one of those scan type of tools to have them scan certain points?
They do
Yeah.
have, there are markers in the community where when they were doing those types of roving patrols before, where they had to actually scan when they got there to show that they were there.
Okay,
But that may depend on the technology that the vendor uses.
True, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes. So there, I mean, it's something that currently is there. They're just not using it because of the way they're patrolling at this time.
They used to call those clock rounds. They had these clocks and they
Yeah.
twist the
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
key in it, you know.
Yeah.
They've got beyond that, so.
They just tap their bag
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think currently the recommendation is to look at them providing a enclosed golf cart for patrol rather than a vehicle.
That's what was written in at one
And
time,
then-
but now we're leaving it a little bit more open because they are providing it. So we're gonna see what they come up with, but it could be either a car or it could be a golf cart. One of the things that we said is that they are responsible not only for providing it, but also for maintaining it, providing it with gasoline and what have you.
And I know to Carol's comment of potentially per district purchasing it, I guess my initial
was-
reaction is I'm not sure about us providing something that's a contractor would actually be using and the responsibility for the maintenance and other things that, you know, things might, if it's not theirs, they may not want to maintain it as appropriate.
As well, yeah.
Just a lot, to me, that leaves, there's a lot of questions in that. It might be a little cheaper to do it that way, but if you.
Yeah, I don't know. I
if
haven't
they
run the
Provide
numbers,
it, they're
but-
responsible for it, so.
Yeah, but
I don't
think-
know.
I think you gotta look at the cost both
Yeah,
directions.
Yeah, you have to run a little
Make
business
decision
case.
based on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think you just have in here that it says maintain, the vendor shall provide and maintain a marked patrol vehicle. It doesn't.
That's right.
What it is.
At one time, it was the enclosed golf cart though, but went through iterations.
Do we have cameras inside the RV lot?
Yes.
We do, okay. Did-
On the RV lot? So
Okay.
does this new contract have an expectation that they actually watch those cameras this time?
All
It's part of
cameras.
the patrol, as part of the patrol route that I read in here. But I don't know how they're gonna get to it if they have a golf cart. How are you gonna get over to that? other entrance?
The monitors are in gardens.
But how do you,
They could be able
oh,
to-
they're not gonna actually physically go over there. They're just gonna look at the screen. Okay.
They can drive with the yellow flashing light, they can drive down the sidewalk along tree line to get there is
Or
what
they,
Danny
or they
said.
can call 911 when they see a boat being
Right, if they
stolen.
see somebody.
Right,
I think-
exactly.
what they probably do when they get
But,
there. yeah.
but for their rover inspection, they can drive down
Mhm. Okay.
the sidewalk to get to it.
Looking at
Okay.
Guard sleeping, motion detector.
Yep.
I-
Yeah.
Is the G4S one of your bidders? Do you know?
I don't know.
We haven't put it out yet.
I see.
Okay.
Looks good.
Okay, any other questions?
Nice job.
So if the
Thank you.
vendor, the new vendor doesn't perform, are there penalties in this contract?
There are out clauses.
30-day term.
Yep.
Thank you.
There are definitely out
So-
clauses.
And I would also anticipate any money that we would save from having a reduced roving schedule is gonna be eaten up by whatever they're gonna buff their contract big for the car or the vehicle.
Well, we're already paying, there's already a charge in the current one for vehicle, gas and something else. I don't remember.
Maintenance.
There's a separate bill that comes once a month. Yeah, it's some kind of maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing whatever.
Yeah.
Put it in the unassigned.
Yeah, we just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure that this came to you before it went to Tony. So if there are any changes, I didn't want to send it to Tony and then have it come back and you guys were like, no, we don't agree with this. So this is, they spent many, well, I know you and I
Oh.
and the team spent many, many hours and then safety and security has spent many, many hours going through this. So this is the final iteration that we're proposing to send on to Tony before it goes to the board.
It's very,
And to clarify what,
Thank
I
you.
think what Bob was saying is there may be a reduction in hours, whether or not there's a financial savings is yet to be seen.
point,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No. I'm really impressed
find
with
out.
the quality, the thoughtfulness that went into this, so.
Yeah, the team did a good job.
You're good with me passing this on to Tony then?
Yeah, any issues with passing it on?
No,
Because-
no.
No, because it's not,
Have we
it's not
recovered
final
all the
yet,
funds
so.
from the overcharges?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Have we recovered
Yes.
all the funds from the
I
overcharge?
got a refund of 19,000 something dollars. So,
Thank you.
yeah, I held invoices equal actually to a little bit more than that until they sent it. And then I paid, so now we're current. So I was actually 3 weeks behind on invoices because they refused to send the credit. That was a whole nother thing. But anyway, yes, we got it.
Thank goodness.
I will send this to Tony for his review.
Okay,
then.
thank you.
Thank you.
I think there's, excuse me, just one second here. There's gonna be, matter of fact, they're being installed right now, a lot of cameras around the town center area.
Right.
Have they talked to you about that?
Not specifically, but when we talk to the PPCA as well as KW, they know what we're doing. And so when we get an agreement on what the scope's going to be, we'll sync up on the cameras and getting that feed into the guard hat.
Great, all right, thank you.
The kitchen doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, let's,
It's important.
yeah,
Yeah.
keep those people from calling pizza out of there.
Right. Yeah, because, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's-
okay.
that's
Yeah,
second
and
bad.
that's all going to be outlined in the post orders,
Okay,
which will be
great.
something else we can share in the future.
Thank you
Nice
very
job.
much.
Jennifer.
So then we're moving on
Look, there you
to
are.
anything else that we have on
You're on the screen.
subcommittees? Any
I'm on screen. Oh,
other subcommittee people want to have a
Oh.
comment or? I guess not. Okay, let's move on to the PPAC member selection. We have Alan, who is
Questionable candidate.
a question. Yeah, we little speeches.
He's
I make a
that
motion to
day
recommend
for
Alan
2
Steinbeck
years.
for reappointment to the committee.
I'll second it.
Okay, we'll do a second with John. And any discussion?
Nope.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your extended service.
Yep.
thank you.
Thank
I
you.
guess.
Sucker. I'm just kidding.
No.
Now we're gonna get to the best
Marty's favorite part,
part.
he's been bugging me for months about this. So I'm gonna have to default to Daniel, because again, outside of knowing that it happened and paying the bill, I have been completely removed
Is
from this
Daniel
process.
online?
He is online.
All right, so I wrote a couple of questions, 5 to Daniel. The first one was the bridge on Pelican Preserve Boulevard. It's got a gap between the sidewalk and the curb, and whether it should be sealed. And he said that sealing it would extend the bridge's life, but he made no indication as whether or not he's gonna have a ticket to do that.
He is still muted. Let me make sure that he's actually not on his phone, and there
No,
you go.
I got you. I'm listening.
Okay.
It was just something that was an item to be brought up after the final inspection was voiced and talked through, which hasn't happened yet. So I'm just looking for directive of whether you want me to do them or not, internally with what ability we can in-house.
So we should initiate a ticket to seal that between the curb and the sidewalk, right? Then the second one was, I understand the bridges that were put in around the preserve. I was told that they did not have a coating put on the deck of the bridge, that we were gonna do that after we hired the person to be full-time
For the maintenance person?
for the maintenance person.
This is Bob again. The original intent was the decking doesn't need anything. The maintenance person is going to take care of the mold on the sideward.
Those are composite, correct?
Right.
Yeah, they don't need any.
They don't need
they're
anything. When we
composite.
put it in, it was part of the consideration.
Okay. Thank you.
That was 2. You said you had 5, right?
I did.
I'm counting.
Tightening the hardware on the bridges that are loose. We're gonna have a ticket for that now? To fix those?
And maybe this is a bigger question. Daniel, how do you want us to proceed with requesting that action is taken on the report?
I just need your guidance here. If you tell me to take care of it, I'll take care of it.
Take care of.
I'll put in the work order on the side. I just wanted to have the actual committee do a review of said report and then have a discussion about it and then give me direction of what we would like to have done.
Okay.
Take care of any.
I'm thrilled that there are no big structural problems with any of the bridges. That I
No,
think
and
is
the
really
checking on the
surprising.
handrails, that's not an issue. That's just a
Well,
normal
that's
wood.
normal, yeah.
Okay. It just, some of
I
them
did
looked a little
My
extreme.
deck supports for 18 years. I had those checks on.
Okay,
And they're not structural.
all right. So do we need to have a formal resolution to ask him to take care of the maintenance on the bridges as per the Volkert inspection
I think we just
reports?
provide it here. I mean, I'm
Okay.
sure Marty's all over that. so.
All right.
It'd be good to do it.
And Daniel, if you could follow up with Marty when you're done.
I will do.
Thank you. I know. We're gonna put a little memorial plaque.
So one of the things the report said that their bridges are supposed to be inspected in another 2 years. Will that be included in your O&M budget then, Daniel?
That'll be for fiscal 26.
It'll be in the safety and security budget.
Yep.
No, they're the ponds.
Well,
Around the conservation
This-
district wall.
But not all of these. Oh, no.
how do you,
So how are we gonna budget for reinspection in 2 years?
The last time we did was 25 years ago.
Well, the report says, I think it's 2 to 4 years.
What's the law required, you know?
I don't
Daniel,
know.
do you know that? What is the parameters that are legally required for bridge inspections?
2 to 4 years.
2 to 4.
I think his report.
You have a general operation, sorry, you do have a general operations area in your budget as well. So if you want to put that in for, we can just make a note for 2 years from now to add that into the operations area. That way it's not specifically safety and security or ponds or whatever,
Okay.
since they're kind of a blend.
Can
We
you
can
make
just put
that
it under
note for us?
Put under that.
But again, why do we want to necessarily go with the 2 years versus the 4 years?
I agree. I'd rather go 4 years.
Well,
Yeah,
let's bring it
It's
up
gone
in 2
20
years.
years already.
Bridges,
Yeah,
as compared to Pelican Reserve Boulevard.
So when I went around with the vendor on the initial inspection of the bridges, I was informed that depending on the span of the bridge, the longer the span, the shorter the inspection. So if you have a bridge that's 35 feet long, it's got to be inspected every 2 years. If you have one that's only 12 feet long, it's every 4 years.
but is that the
So-
recommendation or is that a law or is that, what is?
That's what he told me the law was when I was going around with him at each of the bridges. So the long spans that we have are the ones that go around over to Casella and Pelican Preserve Boulevard. The short
and
one,
the ones that are behind Brocky, except we don't own that one.
we don't own that. And I
But those
requested the community association to paint the bridge behind the Brocky. And they are in dispute on who owns the bridge.
So we're waiting for that.
So
resolution.
we're on the shorter end of the. Is that one,
So
so it wouldn't be 12,
Casella would be every 2 years.
is
And
it that long?
because it's 35 feet. It's in excess of 35 feet. The short one is Pastoria.
Oh, I'm thinking of, okay.
You got a range of 2 to 4 buildings.
Well, what I would say is let's put it on in the agenda. I don't know if you could do a future note.
Not quite that far out.
Okay,
Yeah.
So
I'll put a note in the budget.
okay. We can look at it in 2 years and if we decide that we're not gonna go forward at this point. we
Which,
still move
which
it.
subcommittee?
That's why I said you have a general operating area, or we could put it under that, and that way there's not a specific subcommittee that would oversee it.
Right.
So, or you can decide at that time too. I mean, in 2 years, you may change your mind,
Yeah,
so.
we may have we might have a bridge group for all.
Marty will be in charge of it,
No,
Bridge of Cole.
bridge committee.
I'm a perfect valve guy.
Okay. All right, any other conversation with that? We've given direction to Daniel and he will let us know. And then the funding for that would come from any, is that bonds then?
If it's a pond one, it would. go to
Come from
pond.
ponds. If it was safety and security, it would come out of the road.
Hopefully it's just labor, which would come out of.
Put up a toll.
Yeah, we'll put,
I can't imagine. I don't like these ponds when there's,
bonds are around the
Preserve.
preserve.
The 4 golf cart bridges over the.
They're responsible for the maintenance of those.
yeah,
And
but I
then the
mean,
road
it's a
preserve.
road that goes over it.
But we want to have
You know?
one inspection for efficacy.
Efficiency.
Okay. Moving on then.
All right, this one is back on your agenda. It was on here last month and you asked to have those numbers verified. That's why it says updated at the beginning of the background area. It does get mailed to every door in Pelican, which is, that's exactly from the lady that does this magazine, that little updated paragraph. That was what she confirmed for how that is actually distributed to the residents of Pelican. Nothing under that changed. It's just that you had to ask to verify. I think it said like 8,000 or something the last time. So basically what we're looking for is direction from you, if this is something you would like to pursue, or if it's something that you'd like to table, or just, nope, not gonna do it. So we have no opinion either way. They're your dollars, they're your residents. I just need to tell Randy what to do if you guys would like to move forward.
Okay. Conversation on the board side first, and we'll get to that.
Okay, I think a quarter page is sufficient, but I think we need to change the message monthly. This comes out monthly, right?
Yes.
So changing the message monthly to identify different parameters that the district does for the community is important to do.
And who would make that change?
You would have to, I don't know if you want to have Randy put something together to present to you, to propose to put in the next agenda or edition, or if you guys want to give him information, I guess that's where he would need direction for what to create.
Any other opinions here?
I mean, just keep in mind that that's $250 a month.
Right.
So
My personal opinion is that this is one of those magazines where people open it up and they look to see if they see their neighbors. And then they close it up and they put it away.
I totally agree with you.
I don't know that anybody, unless you were looking for something like a garage door company or a Storm Smart type of ad, I don't know of anybody who would be going in there to say, what do I do with Gateway? Bob.
Since I'm the granddaddy of this one,
Yeah, you are.
I personally would like to see the half-page ad, and what I'd like to see on it, and it could be roving things, but I'd like to see the dates and the times of the 3 subcommittee meetings and this meeting. That's the one thing that I would really like to try and increase the people coming to it.
Mhm.
And I want to advertise that not only here, but anywhere and everywhere. But this just seemed, at least for a year or two, just not a lot of money. So that's my nickel for it.
Cece from Casella too. I just have a concern if the message varied from month to month. People, when they do look at it, may not see whatever the specific question is that they had, and they'll say, oh, that's all they do. And they'll move on to some other. I'm concerned that I mean, it's hard to tell the whole story each month, but on the other hand, to tell part of it, I think you'll end up with a disjointed message coming out, and that's a concern.
Bob, I totally agree. It needs to be communicated. Absolutely needs to be communicated, but just give you an example of what I do a stroll. I love to see the magazine, but I take a look, first of all, at the picture on the front of it. Do I know them? And then I open it up and I leaf through everything until I get to the people who have stories in there, and I read them all. The rest
Or
of it,
the pet. You
I
gotta
don't look at it.
I do the same thing. My frustration is I can't get information communicated by K-Cup.
Yeah.
Very frustrated in that effort.
Well, okay, well, tell me how to do it. I think I can help you. And there's a gentleman in the back there that can help you too.
I've sent copies of it as to the gym.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what it's for, the frustration.
Okay.
Laura can tell you how many times we've made pitches to have it included.
yeah.
Here we are 2 years later, it hasn't happened yet.
I like the idea of having the magnets. I think that was a good idea. I'm not totally convinced that Stroll is the best place to advertise it, but that's just me.
Trying to get it in our 15
Yeah.
page monthly newsletter.
Yeah, but it's a great magazine, but I just don't know that people are
Well,
gonna read it.
The flyer that we're printing, right, that doesn't have any of the subcommittee meeting, does it?
It does not. I think if we, I don't remember for sure. It may say that they meet on like the second Thursday, so it may not have a schedule. I don't recall. I haven't looked
And
at
they
it in a
are?
couple of months, so.
They are on the community calendar.
Well, that's a plus that they didn't have
Yeah.
them on there before,
And
so
they-
it's new.
There was gonna be a quarter page or half page in the newsletter that would rotate between the various subcommittees.
Right.
But since the service agreement is all on hold, everything's on hold
Yeah.
because of that.
So based on the president's meeting today, nobody goes to the subcommittee meetings. They'll all complain about, they don't like the new colors. They don't like the colors of the monuments now. Who picked the colors?
And that went to your architectural committee or whatever too, before they even got painted,
Yeah,
so.
it was broadly.
So Marty's at fault.
Yeah.
Which
So-
they
so-
had no authority.
Marty's at fault then, because he's on the architectural.
No, yeah,
I am.
yeah. Ooh.
Approve those colors.
CC, do you-
CC, just one more comment. I attended yesterday the resident orientation program. And Adriana and Yanni, besides showing what's on the website and how to find things, what's on that page,
Mhm.
there definitely was reference to Gateway and but it's still in the minds of many in a state of flux. You know, click fix, is it really, okay, you know, they say, do that or call Doug Zander if it has. And it's not nailed down enough in terms of procedure yet. So I'm thinking that I can't understand why the PPCA wouldn't want to promote it too, just to make smooth sailing for everybody. Now, you were at that
It's
meeting,
getting better.
so it just seems to me, it makes sense that it should come from our parent.
Well, I would think that that makes a lot of sense, and I'm not giving up on the thought that we are going to make headway. I mean, all these contentious issues that we're dealing with right now will go away, hopefully within a short period of time. And we can then again approach and say, how can we collaborate? Because that's our main goal, is collaboration to the betterment of our community. And this, I think, firmly falls into that.
Yeah, people just don't quite understand what Gateway is responsible for. They just don't get it. And unless it's gonna be shoved down their throats in every mechanism that goes to people, I don't think it's gonna clarify.
We really have to make an effort, and it's not Gateway, it's not this governmental entity, it's you guys. Everything that happens because the 5 of
We
you
are a team.
or 7 of you do something, and you're all residents. We gotta get that community.
Yeah, we can work on that.
Well, I've talked to a couple of the board members previously, and now Jim's here, and so maybe we can kind of put the B on him. But there is no reason why on your board meetings that you can't devote 2 or 5 minutes to talk about the GSCDD.
Try to do that.
And this is what it's all about. This is what we do. This is what they're doing, because they're actually improving the roads through here. They're improving the ponds through here. They got security through here. There's no reason why they couldn't spend at least a couple of minutes on that each board meeting. That would help too, because there's quite a few people go to those board meetings. But that's just my idea. And so Jim here is going to take it and run with it.
Thank you, Jim.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jim Bollinger, Matarita 1. Yes, I'll try to do what you suggested, but I think you need to be realistic too. Residents don't go to meetings that are held at Pelican Preserve that have a direct impact on their lives. And this is something that they don't think. When I was a resident for 9 years before I got involved, I didn't care what you guys did. It didn't affect me every day. And so people are not going to show up. No matter how much you try, we'll do what we can, but you need to have a realistic expectation about what's going to really happen.
And it's even worse for the part-timers.
Yeah, exactly.
Part-timers,
Right.
yeah.
And forgetting about the meetings, but it does affect them because their taxes they're spending that kind of money. That's what they need to continue to pound into them.
Most people worry about that once a year when they get their tax bill.
Yeah,
Other than that,
yeah, I know.
they don't think about it. So.
It's a valid,
Yeah.
very
Yeah,
valid
so-
point. Yeah. All right, so then what do we want to do with this?
We want to spend the money or not?
No,
I don't.
I don't.
No, not for Stroll.
So are we consensus that we would like to just, I'm not even gonna say table it. we'll
Not move
just
forward.
Not move forward, yeah.
I'll move that we don't move forward with this scroll advertisement.
I'll second.
Discussion? I think we've had it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Okay,
right, thank you.
customer care data.
This one. Good.
So a question I have is this, that the inputs were in two separate ways? Why are they separate? One is email and one is click
Because
fix?
not everybody uses the click fix.
Okay, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
These are separate
Total
ways of
contacts, yeah.
total, okay.
We have to take the emails and convert them to click fix tickets, but they're not double counted.
They are not. Okay, that was my next question.
This was updated since last month.
This is through May. Yep, I asked Randy to update it each month for you, so it'll include
Yeah,
cumulative data through the end or through the beginning of the end of the previous month or beginning of the current.
right.
So
So along with Cece's comments, we are just not consistent because I'm not sure everything's being reported this way because ponds or landscaping might be handling ones from email that they get directly.
correct.
Right.
So this is just, we have no way to track that. We can only track the things that are coming here, which is what you asked to see. So
But it still doesn't take into account Doug getting calls.
this doesn't, we have no idea what happens outside the district. So anybody that would contact anyone, on any of you guys or a subcommittee person
Marisky?
directly to take
Yeah.
care of something,
Yeah.
we don't have that
It-
data.
It's what we talked about last month is that it could be a lot more than that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you from a ponds perspective, it's rarely over 10 a month. And I don't know what landscaping would say for Ameriscape.
Landscape is fine.
But I mean, it just shows me our volumes aren't high.
Hmm.
That's what I take from this, is that it's either not being used or,
And different reports, landscape use, one,
Mhm.
ponds use, we're not using fund.
right.
Landscape uses Ameriscape.
They're differences.
They have their own system, yeah. We did have a meeting a few weeks ago with each of the pond chair, or each of the subcommittee chairs, and then Daniel and Chelsea and Randy, to talk about processes to see how we can better utilize the C-Click fix and figure out processes to make it smoother for residents. I know we're not quite there yet. They're still ironing a few things out. And so that, again, that's like Cece's point, that puts it in flux. You can see that the majority of the things that do come in are just general questions / complaints about things that don't fall into any specific category. I field a lot of phone calls, so that aren't reported in here anywhere.
It's somewhat related. Is Daniel still on?
Yeah. Whether or not he's
Yeah.
listening, I don't know, but he's still logged in.
Well, I guess one of the things, I know we've now got a person or allocated of a maintenance person for Pelican, but I'd like to see a lot more reporting to us and the subcommittees on just what that person is doing. What have they accomplished in the last reporting period and what's on their to-do list so that the committees can have input into their prioritization and what to work on. I know there's some of that that's buried in the reporting that the Commissioner Board of Directors get
Yep.
in their monthly reporting, but I haven't seen much reported at the various committee levels and asked to prioritize different things and stuff, other than just broad general
So
categories.
does Daniel have one punch list? Or
Yeah,
do
I
we
was gonna
have-
say, knowing
Yeah.
Daniel, he's probably got a spreadsheet.
He meets and
I actually have both.
yeah.
I have a punch list and a so sitting down with Bob and working through some of the items. There was a punch list that was given to me from KW that is just a weekly item list to go through, blow off the boardwalk, address a couple areas, some monuments. What I've since done, because really essentially what you're getting is 40 manpower hours every single week out there with my crew, because a lot of the items aren't just a one-man show. So we're accounting for everybody's usage across the board for all of my maintenance people that come out to Pelican. And we got that in an Excel sheet that gets reported to Laura every single pay period so that we're reporting it. What I've just started adding to it is this past pay period, and I've shared this with Bob, and I got some refinement notes from Bob as well, as how we're using those manpower hours while my folks are out there. So there's two tabs in the Excel sheet. One is the hours that are being dedicated to Pelican, and the other portion of it is what exactly are they doing on the ground. And I'm going to start socializing that now that that's getting more refined. Like I said, I got feedback from Bob Geppert on that one, and we'll start really honing in on what the subcommittees would like these individuals or that manpower hour time frame, that 40 hours a week, to go towards. We're starting to look at monuments, and I believe the next landscaping committee is, we're going to really gear towards what is the priority for painting and what color schemes and things along those lines, so that any of the monuments that are listed for us can start at least getting refreshed, pressure washed and refreshed for painting. We've done a lot of sidewalk grinding. All of Pelican Preserve Boulevard in the past month has every joint that was misaligned as a slip, trip, fall identified hazard has been ground, all of Pelican Boulevard. So just little by little going through, and we're more than open to any of the ideas that the committees have for usage.
But Daniel, I guess what I'm asking for is more of a presentation, a discussion of that at each of the subcommittees and here, so we have access, so we know what is on the to-do list and what has been done, because there's very little exposure to that.
Well, Daniel, I
Absolutely.
think
Other than seeing all the red stripes on all the sidewalks and then all the grinding, but I don't think that's been a topic of conversation at the subcommittee level much. So we just need to engage the subcommittees in on the work that's being done over there.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Laura, on this, what you have up here on the screen for us,
Yep.
if we're not getting everything and we think that the numbers are consistently or not factual,
Understated.
understated, yeah. Is this report of any value?
Well, this is, you specifically asked us to provide what was coming through customer care, which is what this is.
What we were
That's
trying
the
to get a
quick fix.
gauge on.
Is how much contact there was.
Yes, and if we had $60,000 on the line, we'd want to know, what volume we're going to be expecting to have somebody pick
Oh.
up.
4 different reporting systems.
Yeah.
But I don't know I'm gonna take anything away from this if we know that Doug's getting another 20 a month, and I'm not really sure where the value is at with it. And I know we requested it, but I don't know that I could use that, or we could use it.
Well, I think, even with with KW fielding the calls prior to that service agreement going away, those calls to Doug and Mark and whoever were still all happening in the background anyway, so we wouldn't have had any way to track them.
Yeah.
So it's basically what's coming to us now instead of to KW is what we're tracking.
So do we need something from the subcommittee's monthly reports to say how much they're getting notified of issues?
Yeah, how many residents are
Letting
asking for
the
help?
ball,
Yeah.
subcommittees nurture this, and we communicate to the residents who they're supposed to call to see where it goes in that 6 months. Also very.
Hey, Marty, I know we have a ticketing system that we could, anything where we request to a vendor, I get a call, it goes into the ticketing system, that goes to the vendor to be fixed. I could give a report in my monthly report. We got the data. Peggy was the one that really worked to create that system. Peggy knows more than I do about it.
Mark's got one of the various ponds.
But Doug, that's nice of you to volunteer, but I'm upset with you because we got you on early so you could go to whatever you're doing in Orlando without being.
Well, my wife's taking a nap, so I'm.
Oh,
That's good. Yeah, let's let this percolate for a while.
Sure.
and
We're
let-
still working on education and,
Yeah.
with the community. And so I expect if we would look at the volumes by month now versus a year from now, I would expect it would change. I mean, but because again, we're still figuring it out because it's a big change.
Yeah. And as Daniel and I had a meetup where we talked over the ponds ticketing system.
Mhm.
And our goal would still be to try to integrate, but as he said, he has to grow that system a little bit.
Yeah, we're still
Integrate.
getting data put in and
Yeah.
we're still figuring out how to
So,
use it.
so it's
Yeah.
not a near term.
No, it's a
Yeah.
new tool for us as well. I mean, just even as staff, I did my first ticket 2 weeks ago. I'm getting better at it now, though. All right.
I started to write a ticket and it was too hard, so I just closed that up.
Okay, well, let's move on to another fun discussion then. Budget.
I'm sure Ed has a bajillion changes to it. So this is, this would have been as of last week. I had gotten some updates from Ponds and from Safety and Security. Since the one that you saw last month.
So this is not up to date, that what we'd be looking at.
This is the Pelican version that's going to the board next week. So this was, I waited
this
till the
is
very
okay.
last, I waited till the very last minute. I got updates from Ponds and Safety and Security on their budget. So this is not the same version that you saw at your meeting last month. There are changes to this compared to what you saw last month.
Okay.
Small changes, but there are changes. You can see here the safety and security budget actually went down from 763 to 698. This part here, there was some conversation at your meeting last month. Safety and security proposed it. You guys said 0. So this falls under the reason this is 0 is because this falls under are we going to fund it through assessments or are we going to fund it through reserves? So by me not including it here, doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means it will not get assessed. So once the tables are all calculated for what people are going to pay every month, when we do the actual budget, we'll have to transfer money from the reserves to cover those
From the
expenses.
capital.
Yes. So that's why there's a proposed amount, meaning that's the amount of work. And this is kind of what I had alluded to last month, where I said, this is the discussions you need to have as PPAC, because do we want to fund these through assessments? Or do we want to fund these through capital? And last month you went towards capital, which is why I have it just in the notes, but not in the total. So that can be changed. It just has to happen before the board adopts or approves the budget, not adopts.
Couple questions. The 2 items that you removed,
Yes.
was that at Jennifer's direction?
No, that isn't my direction because this is not part of the contract. And this is something that we had, and Jennifer, not being that Jennifer, but the old Jen from KW, Jen Lewis. Yeah, there's a $7,500 cost for those supplies and passes, which is PPCA's responsibility to pay for, not yours,
And-
because they are strictly for residents. So.
Okay, but what had been proposed was to reduce that to 2,500 in case there were some sort of supplies. And the other one was Gatehouse Technologies was
It's part of the contract.
$7,500.
Yeah, that's part of the contract. And in the current contract, there are no expenses that we are supposed to be paying for anything in the gatehouse.
But at our workshop, I committed on behalf, since Jennifer wasn't around, I committed that we would at least reduce to our prior year budget, approved budget, which was 768.5 or 7085. Not the amended budget, but the approved that the assessments were based on. So should we add 10,000 back into some other line item there? Be it other, rather than, that way it would.
Sure. And I do need to know too, there was this, you can see I have a note here, like, what is this for? So I'm obviously it's kind of a catch-all for things that don't fall under other categories, but normally we at least have an idea of some things that you may use it
Jennifer's
for.
working on
So,
that.
okay.
Jennifer's working on that.
So I'll need that by 2 weeks from yesterday. So I have it before the meeting on the 6th for the board. I have to publish the agenda the week before, so you have like 2 weeks. And then I guess I'll ask for your direction on this, but I said right now, the way everything is written, Gateway is not responsible for toilet paper, Windex, anything in that guardhouse. That is all part of their contract, that they are to supply paper, toner, anything they need inside the gatehouse is all up to them, including the passes, which are paid for by PPCA. because they tried to slip one through on the reimbursement and I said, nope, that's your responsibility. And that was a $7,500 bill for those passes.
Well, I would propose that we at least add the 10,000 and put it to the other,
Okay,
just
Yep.
so that it's the
708,500.
500, which is what was assessments were based on last year.
I am totally comfortable with that. And then Jennifer will get me a list of, doesn't have to be all consuming, but just kind of some things. Obviously, there's gonna be things that come up that you're not gonna be able to project that, and that's kind of like a slush fund for that.
Basically what I'm trying to do. Big new to this, what I'm trying to do actually is for each line item, write out what's included in it
Okay,
and where it should be charged.
okay.
And so,
If you have that, I can absolutely just incorporate that right into the budget. So
Okay,
these
sure.
lines, the notes lines don't actually get printed in the final budget. That's more for us when we go through this and for the board if they have questions. So the more information you can give me, the better. We only publish the numbers in the actual printed budget. The notes are just for us.
okay, yeah, what I'm hoping to do is get this together and then get together with you and maybe
Sure.
Julie and Georgia and whomever, whoever's appropriate to go through this, make sure I have a clear understanding. Okay, all right. Make sure that I have a clear understanding and that we're in agreement with what goes into each of these line
I can
items.
drill down into each one.
Perfect.
It was our goal, not zero funding, but a 3% reduction.
I think our goal should be no increase from last year, especially with the 460,000 that Marty had identified as being a surplus from this year. I think we'd go forward and say we can expect
I'd like-
no increase.
I'd like to set a goal for a reduction.
I know Ponds is hurting right now in terms of what they've had to reduce and they've had to take on additional, I'm not gonna talk for you, Doug, but I'm paraphrasing. They've had to take on additional tasks and we asked them to reduce already by 30,000, which they did.
So I think one other thing to keep in mind is this is your high water budget. So anything that you think you may want to do for next year, please include it in this version. You can always cut it. It's better to have more than you think you're gonna need in the initial version. And then once we get to August and we have the final where they adopt the budget, that gives us 2 months to go through and really fine tooth comb, I'm not saying add money to what's already here, but I'm just saying, I wouldn't start cutting things yet. I would wait until after June.
Yeah, another thing, I guess, is this doesn't include the administrative group or the operational admin group services. And from what was in the board's packet, it was in there, but I noticed there was a glaring error on the PTO buyout allocation. I don't know if you guys have caught that. Where the allocation was 36,000, but as it was spread across, Pelican had 123,000.
Oh,
So
it's fixed.
basically just
Yeah,
a copy,
it's fixed. It was
but it still didn't look like it worked out to, even with that correction, 14% allocation. So, but using a 14% of that, when I punched it in, it looks like we might be looking at about a 3% assessment increase, even holding each of our subcommittees at the prior.
Due to the
prior
administrative
previous
overhead.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we need to see what those are before we can really see where our budget and projected assessments are, and the other question I have is down at the bottom. This is where you've got funding capital reserves at 763. This doesn't have, what you have here doesn't have the list of capital projects. And so I don't know where that 763 comes
okay. I can.
from. It looks like maybe it's fully funding some list. And it at most should probably be that we talked about in the workshop, maintaining it at the 200,000 level. To
You're
fund it.
interpreting it correct.
Right.
Yes.
Took everything in that year, fully funded.
Yeah, well,
There's never been an intent to do.
I haven't seen that list.
And again,
so
water. So we
That's.
we throw all the spaghetti at the wall and then.
That's a thinkus.
That would be if you did not use reserve funds to pay for any of the capital projects for this
Well,
year.
we haven't even approved the capital projects. So we don't know what's on that list.
Okay.
Good news story, Elson gave us.
I,
Oh, it's worse than when you saw it
So-
before.
Under other fees and charges, then we should just change that from 763.9 to 200.
200.
I would honestly, right now for the June one, I would leave it where it is. And then after the June one, I would drop it. Because that way that gives you the flexibility.
No reason to cut.
It's a
Yeah.
high water mark. They're not gonna actually get it.
You're gonna
It's
send out
nothing
letters,
is formalized until August when we have the public hearing and they vote on it.
but you're gonna send it, well, I can't even agree to that number because I haven't seen what's behind that number,
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
you know?
Alright, just a minute.
I mean, it shows us being up $630,000. That's, we can't submit that.
I'm gonna agree with John that and maybe Marty, I apologize. I know you want to get a 3% reduction. But in my budgeting over the years for the company that I work for, got to be a little careful about that too. Because if we shoot to meet budget and to not exceed what we did the year before, we're a whole lot better than trying to shoot for a 3% cut. Once you cut, then the people are gonna expect next year, if it goes up, then they're gonna be very upset about it.
Well,
So you're always,
we'll have to cut services at that point.
yeah, I mean,
And
you're
that's not gonna
always,
Make anybody happy.
you're a lot better off trying to get it down to where we can have a flat budget versus, trying to cut much below that.
Mhm.
But it's a real challenge. It's inflationary times. Really.
Mhm.
I mean, if it would make you feel better to do 300,000 and then we'll cut it when we get to August, I mean, I could live with that, but I'm not looking at a $630,000
Increase.
increase. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see us have another meeting prior to whenever this has to go to the board so that we can finalize what we want to actually send to the board. Because right now, we haven't seen the two administrative sections and we haven't seen this capital list.
It'll
And-
be published tomorrow in the board pack.
but you're not talking about having a meeting before the high water,
Yeah,
really.
I-
Because you're gonna have to cut from the high water.
well, if we can reduce that 763 to something manageable, but I think we still have to see the capital and approve
Yes.
that.
Hmm.
Because we haven't.
Yes, I would like to remind you that your high water mark that we present and we vote on, I think it's June 15th, we
It
have
has
to
be
have
done
it.
by June 15th. My goal is to have it done at the
And
June
you
6th
will,
meeting.
you will have a PPCA meeting before that. Or I'm sorry, PPAC. You will have a meeting before,
6th?
No,
we
they
have
will
to-
not.
No.
yes,
No,
because
they
your next
won't.
meeting's
They-
on the,
They won't,
Ninth.
because we have to have it done. We have to have it done actually by the 14th because the 15th is a Saturday.
oh,
And they would meet on the 13th and I have it on the agenda for the 6th.
well, anyway, my comment was gonna be this, what we vote on the 15th is what gets
On the
sent
6th.
out
On the
to
6th.
every property owner from is it the collector's office? I forget what office it is, but that is what people see. And honestly, that's what people believe. Now, we can cut after that and that's nice. But people don't always realize that when they get that bill in November, then that it was reduced.
Good point.
They kind of get their adrenaline up when
my
they
phone
see
ring?
that number
My phone ringing
in
off the hook.
August. So,
That's why I
I
think we have
think it's
to
a two-edged sword. Yes, you want to be careful, but remember, part of this is to alert the public as to what to expect for their taxes. And when they get that letter in August, that's when they start paying attention.
Yeah, they get it in July because we have the hearing in August. So
So thank you, Cheryl, as you make reserve 350 for this. In ballpark.
What would our increase be at that point?
I don't know. I don't have that, so I can change it. I haven't published I was waiting for today to make the final
If
updates of the
you-
version. So
if you leave the 763 in there, my numbers show about a 20% increase is what they would see in that letter. If you leave the 200 in there, it's depending on what those admin ones are. It's about a 2.6, 2.7% increase.
And again, sidewalk is $350.
Right, so that,
$306 per household.
You tell me what you'd like there.
so should,
At least, yeah,
For high water.
or 200.
350
300.
versus the 763.
Yeah.
I don't want to give anybody heart palpitations.
Oh, my phone rings off the hook as soon as I know the day the letters hit the mailboxes, so.
Well, we're trying to save you. That's.
It's gonna happen anyway. I got all the gateway, so.
Laura,
Oh, good.
in the financials, I almost hate to bring this up. Um, there's a trustee fees
Yep,
of 4,000. Is that something we need to budget
yep,
for?
that's for your bond that you have. You guys have a bond from 2013.
Because that's not included in this.
It's, I know it's in there in the version that I'm working on now, so, yeah.
Okay, well, it doesn't. Question, is there any reason we couldn't just pay off the bond?
Using
You
our
guys.
reserves, our capital reserve.
Which bond are you talking about? You have two.
Okay.
The 2013 bond.
It's
It's at about
Completely up to you if you
it's
want to pay
about
it off.
1.6 million
Yep,
outstanding. There's 300,000 in the capital fund for that was never spent. And there's 400 and some thousand in the fund that gets collected every year to pay off, part of the interest and principal and interest. So that means we'd have to, from my calculations, we'd have to come up with, around $900,000. And if we paid that transferred out of our capital reserves, we could basically pay off the bond. It's currently being assessed to Old Pelican, on average of about $180 per household per year.
Do you know what
Some more, some less.
the interest rate is on the bond?
5.75%.
What's the other bond?
that's the one, the district-wide
It's
one.
a 2023 bond that Pelican has a share of for the
The weir.
office building and
The
the
weirs.
improvements. But that's just starting to be paid for, but it doesn't encumber any Pelican assets. It's just the flowway and our share of the office building.
We could avoid that cost if we chose.
If we paid it from reserves too, but that would draw down our reserves.
The questions always come up, are the reserves ours or are they Gateways?
Only yours.
They're yours.
Oh,
You have a totally separate fund, totally separate bank accounts. Everything is
Yeah, 'cause
yours.
that's-
Anything under 002 is Pelican.
Right, that's that 2.8 million
Yeah,
of
and-
capital reserves. that we
There's just been
actually-
some discussions that says, no, that's gonna have to stay with Gateway. So that's why I asked that.
absolutely.
Good.
There are dollars that were collected from Pelican residents
All right.
For Pelican assets.
or Pelican. Yep.
That will bear quite a bit more discussion,
No,
but I'm glad that you brought it up because I think cogitating on that is probably
I wonder if we could ask staff to put together what it would
what it would truly
it-
look like.
take to
Sure.
do that.
I already know Daniel's gonna say you don't want to bring down your capital reserves when you've got big budget items coming in.
Right?
Well,
That's correct.
sooner or later, we have to redo Pelican Reserve Boulevard and Cypress Grove. It's
They're gonna be.
costing.
But that's what the safety and security is looking at, about a 300,000 a year expenditure for road resurfacing for the next 15 years. But, and to pull that out of capital reserves, but if we're funding it at some level. That'll be another discussion. Because some of my calculations were we needed, 300,000 or 400,000 contribution to be able to pay for that. And, Mark had offered up that landscaping reserve that he has. He would rather give that up if we wanted to, rather than reduce his budget. So at the workshop. So
So you're asking for a proposal to what the 2013 bond buyout would look like?
yeah,
If that's
what would
the-
what would have to occur and when it
Okay.
would have to occur. And
That could be a very good.
I'm sure there's some
Yeah, the pros and cons of it.
issues.
Not everyone's
transferring
affected
those
by,
funds and
by the
some of
payments
that.
every year either, so that's another thing to consider.
Well,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
inherit. It's yeah, can you think of the word? It's not an equally borne burden.
No.
it's not, they're the only ones who get assessed
No.
for it.
Bond, no benefit.
It's to those, right,
Right.
Which, yeah,
the
Over.
old Pelican,
Right now, it doesn't impact Utah.
So
The
basically,
only Pelican people incur the debt, are the ones that are paying for it. You take the collective total Pelican to pay it all.
Well, would you be using 900,000 of collective Pelican capital reserves, but I would argue, and I'm in New Pelican, that I get a benefit of those assets that were put in. I drive down Pelican Boulevard every day and I see the ponds that were put in and everything else. So all residents get use of those
get the enjoyment
assets
of the
that are
asset.
currently being paid for by Old Pelican residents
You know,
only.
the old people that-
And it would then encumber the properties at Tree Line and Colonial.
correct.
well, that would give Carol, let's sell them. Okay, well, a
But at least
discussion
if we
for
put
another day.
together what it
when we
would
get-
take to do that, then we can have further discussions around.
Okay, I'll have that for your next meeting.
That's really good.
But don't forget also, the philosophy always has been in Pelican. We want to bond as much as we can so that the next guy pays for his share of it too.
Right.
We don't always have to pay for our own. Because being a 55 and older community, the philosophy has often been in Pelican Preserve. We'll pay for our share when we're here right now, but we're not gonna be here in 20 to 30 years. So for the 10 years we're here, or the 15 years we're here, or whatever, we'll pay for when we're here, but we're not gonna pay for the next guy to come along. And that's kind of been a philosophy in all of Pelican.
Reserve.
Because we're in the eagle.
Like you gotta get-
Well, I know,
it's base.
I agree that that's definitely, I think, what I perceive from Gateway standpoint, but I know there was a lot of discussion on PPAC when I first came here about whether or not we should use the reserve so that we didn't have the 23 bond issue. So, there was a lot of discussion about using reserve money to pay for our share of the office building and that stuff so we didn't have a 23 bond, so.
It's still out.
As they said, no.
No.
Let it be the 20 and 30-year bonds. I'm not gonna be here in 20 years.
Well, I'll be here.
I'll pay. I'll pay. for
I
my
will.
2 years of reserve, 15 years. Pay for the next guy.
But Carol's point, it's 23 bond,
Yeah.
so that ain't that.
All right, any other discussion on the budget? Are we comfortable with saying?
So I have two changes.
Okay.
I just based on our conversation, I'll make sure I captured everything. I'm gonna add $10,000 to the other and safety and security for those changes that I took off. And Jennifer and I will work together to get the notes for where the stuff is gonna come from. And then to change the capital reserve to 350,000 from the 763.9. Okay,
Anything else that we discussed?
Did you say 250 or three?
350
0, 0, 0.
000.
All right, I think that puts paid to that one.
All right, and then we already did member items and reports. So you're on your next meeting agenda.
Okay, next meeting, early June. It'll be before the budget goes to
It'll be
them.
the 13th.
We we won't be able to really make any changes to that because
The only,
that's the.
yeah, the only way that you would be able to make changes to it at your next meeting would be if for some reason they don't get it approved before your next meeting. But I said my goal is to have that done at the meeting on the sixth.
Okay.
I will not be here next month.
But I still would like to have the budget on your agenda because that's when we'll know, what was approved. And then that's when you can start having discussions about changes and reductions. So I'll just keep the budget discussion as going forward. It'll be on your June, July and August agendas because you'll meet before the final, the public hearing is at the second meeting in August. So you'll meet before we have the public hearing.
Another thing, just to make sure everybody is aware, the resolution that we passed on to the Board of Supervisors was tabled until November. Is that right?
Yes.
Tabled until November to see how it works with,
Permanency.
yeah, for the permanence of that resolution to see how it works with, as just a regular. So that's where that one stands. Tom was approved, for the Board of Supervisors, so he'll be joining us.
Where does our resolution for PERT stand?
That's a very good question.
That is going to be brought up at our next meeting.
Yes.
Next week.
Next week.
Yep.
For approval because we want to have it done before June 1st. And it involved no money. It was just a cooperative agreement between PERT and the.
Well, we don't want the district to,
CFPDP. We want to do it before June 1st.
I think Tony needed there was a couple of things he needed to clean up on it before it went to the board
we
to
don't
be
want the
officially.
district to incur any liability if something gets.
No, we won't. That's why we have that agreement. It's all very clearly spelled out because we had the agreement prior and there were just a few updates that needed to be made from it for things that were no longer relevant to when we had done it 2 or 3 years ago. I know it's been since I was here. And then they're gonna vote on it next week.
Yeah. That was-
So there were things that are in existence now that were not in existence or the other way around. So that are no longer. So there just need to be a few updates.
Okay.
Just so you know, I plan to be here the next meeting.
Oh, that's the other thing. If you can please let Georgia know sooner rather than later, if you are not going to be here for a specific meeting. I know that, same with the subcommittees, we're gonna remind them as well, especially because some of them have the seasonal snowbirds on them. It saves us an awful lot of work if we know that there's not gonna be a quorum. So
Would you do me a favor and let her know? Cause I leave first thing in the morning.
you won't be here for next month.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please. Thank you.
No, Alan.
All right, anything else that we want on the agenda for next month? We'll be able to talk through the bond. Do you think you'll have something?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I get Steven crunching numbers all over the place. That'll just be one more thing I'll ask him to do. So between me and
Yeah, I'm
him,
looking forward to
that's all I do is numbers.
Who does Steven work for?
He works for Infomark. He's technically our controller. Sonia and I do the day-to-day stuff and then he oversees all of it. It's his name on the stuff when it goes in, so not mine. At least 10, because I know we just did revision 10, so yeah. Our relationship has changed a lot over the 4 years that I've been here, so.
All right, if there's nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Aye.
I.
All right, thank you,
Meeting is
everyone.
adjourned. Thank you all.
Usually I'm out in front of that one. Usually I'm out in front of that one.